In the stillness of a cold, gray morning, the wind whispers through the trees of the small cemetery, as if it were the earth itself mourning the loss. The sound of the wind mixes with the distant murmur of the few people present at the funeral. The coffin, made of dark, simple wood, rests in the center, surrounded by wilted flowers and downcast eyes. The day seems not to want to be. It is as if even the sun has hesitated to appear, buried behind a thick layer of clouds. But there is something in the air that everyone seems to feel but no one can explain. And there, next to the coffin, a dog with brown fur and sad eyes remains motionless. Maximum. His name is a distant echo of a life that no longer belongs to this world. He does not move. He does not react to the visible pain of those present. He simply observes. His eyes, large and full of silent sadness, are fixed on the coffin as if he is waiting for something that has not yet happened. The wind carries a familiar scent to him, the scent of his owner. But that scent feels different now, more distant, colder. Max doesn't react. His eyes remain fixed as if each beat of his heart is a silent prayer, an unspoken promise. The others, the humans, slowly move away, dragged along by the pain and weariness of grief. But Max doesn't leave. He refuses to leave. The bond between them, between him and the man who is gone, is stronger than any of the conventions that say it's time to move on. And so Max lies there, lying beside the coffin, his posture dignified, but the sadness in his eyes a beacon of pain and loyalty. No one understands, but no one dares to ask. Until hours later, the silence is broken. What happened? What was revealed in that moment would change everything. Eduardo remains on the sidelines of the funeral, distant, as if the pain has transported him to another world, where time no longer has any meaning. He observes the scene but does not see her. His gaze is lost, vacant, as if his soul were absent, leaving his body only a shell. He cannot be there, cannot get involved. The pain is deep, stronger than any gesture, any word of comfort that could be said. He only feels the absence. The loss of Max was not just the loss of a friend, but of a part of himself. For years, Max had been his constant companion, the faithful friend who never asked questions, who was always by his side in moments of joy, but especially in the darkest hours. When Eduardo felt too weak to continue, Max was there with his watchful eye, his silent but meaningful presence. They didn't need words because words had never been necessary. The connection between them was deeper, more visceral. Now Eduardo walks through life like a ghost. The coffee he always drank with Max by his side, waiting for crumbs, no longer tastes good. The house, which was once full of life and small shared moments, now feels empty, like a lifeless shell. He doesn't know what to do with the emptiness that has taken over his existence. The days drag on colorlessly, and he finds himself stuck in the midst of the emotional chaos that the loss has brought with it. The pain is so intense that he cannot talk about it. He does not know how to express what he feels. He cannot even cry. Grief manifests itself in silent ways, like a shadow that follows him, that watches him but never leaves him. Max's memories come with a sharp pain, a longing that cuts like a sharp knife. He tries to move forward, but each step seems heavier than the last. He wonders if he will ever be able to feel the warmth of a hug or the comfort of someone's gaze again. But he does not know the answer. All he knows is that without Max, life is no longer the same. He feels lost, as if he's been ripped from the ground, floating in a turbulent sea of feelings that he doesn't know how to control. Time passes and Eduardo's house remains silent, like a capsule of solitude that refuses to be opened. The man, now shaped by loss, walks through his days as if he were a spectator of his own life. He tries to find some solace in the small rituals that routine imposes on him. but nothing seems to fill the void that Max left. Then on an afternoon that seemed like so many others, something happens. When Eduardo returns home tired with the weight of sadness still on his shoulders, he finds a figure at the door. A dog. It's not Max, but something about him seems familiar. The animal is lying there, calm, as if waiting to be invited in. He doesn't bark, doesn't jump, doesn't make any abrupt movements. He just watches with those big, serene eyes. There's something in those eyes that Eduardo recognizes, something that makes him stop for a moment and question himself. The dog has long golden fur, but his gaze is what draws the most attention. It is not the gaze of any ordinary dog, but a gaze that seems to carry a silent wisdom, as if he knows something that Eduardo does not yet understand. The man approaches hesitantly, and the dog remains still, but his eyes continue to speak. They connect in a way that cannot be explained. Eduardo, without thinking much, opens the door and allows the animal to enter. Something inside him tells him that this is the right thing to do. It is not a gesture of desperation, but of something deeper, as if destiny had traced this path. The dog enters, and the silence in the house seems to diminish, to soften. There is no longer the weight of absence, only the calm presence of the animal, as if he were a missing link that Eduardo did not even know he needed to find. The connection is silent but strong, like an unspoken promise, a word not spoken but understood by both. And in that moment, Eduardo feels a lightness he hasn't felt in a long time. It's not a cure, but a comfort. Something new is beginning to form between them, something that is perhaps greater than they can even comprehend. The dog doesn't replace Max, but it brings back something that Eduardo thought he had lost forever. The first few days with the new dog are quiet but different. Eduardo realizes that despite the persistent pain, there is something comforting about the animal's company. He does not replace Max, but somehow fills him with his silent and constant presence. The dog, who does not yet have a name, follows Eduardo around the house with calm patience. There is no rush, no demands. The animal seems to understand the fragility of his new owner, giving him space without forcing an immediate connection. But as the days pass, Eduardo begins to notice subtle changes. Small gestures that were previously impossible to perform due to the pain that consumed him now become more natural. He begins to take better care of himself, to eat more frequently, to walk the streets again without the weight of loneliness crushing his shoulders. The dog does nothing but be there, but it seems that his presence softens the gravity of the emptiness that Eduardo feels. There are times when a man in front of a mirror looks at his own reflection and asks himself who he was before the loss. The answer does not come, but something in him begins to change. He no longer feels lost, not so lonely. But at times he questions himself if this change is happening genuinely, or if it is just a defense mechanism against the emptiness. The dog, although calm and serene, carries an intensity that Eduardo only begins to notice over time. The animal begins to come closer, sitting close to him in moments of greater silence, placing its head on Eduardo's lap with unexpected confidence. But despite the comfort it brings, Eduardo cannot help but feel that something is incomplete, as if the animal is trying to find a way to speak something that Eduardo cannot yet understand. Their relationship is still uncertain, where small insecurities intertwine with the need to find a new meaning for life. Eduardo realizes that even if the dog does not have the answer to the pain he feels, he is a presence that brings a form of healing. It is not a quick or definitive cure, but a way to soften the sharp edges of pain. They begin to walk together side by side on calm mornings, on quiet afternoons, as if time were lighter with each other's company. The dog's name is still a mystery. Eduardo tries to think of something, but nothing seems to be appropriate. The dog, however, doesn't seem to care. He carries on, faithful and calm, as if he already knew that the real name would be given at the right time, when the connection between them was fully formed. It's not the rush that matters, but the deep understanding that comes from silent and patient coexistence. The first conflict arises on a cold morning. The dog somehow refuses to leave Eduardo's room. He lays in the doorway, refusing to move. Edward tries to call the animal, but it just looks at him with those calm eyes, as if it's in no hurry to go anywhere. Eduardo feels a growing discomfort. He's not ready to open up completely. He still carries the guilt of losing Max, and somewhere inside he's afraid to get attached to this new friend. But the dog doesn't give up. He remains firm, silent. And Eduardo, in a moment of weakness, sits down next to the animal and starts stroking its head. Something changes in that moment. The gentle movement of the dog's paws, the light breathing the animal releases. Everything seems to come into harmony with the sadness that Eduardo still carries. He realizes for the first time that perhaps the animal has something to teach him about what it means to be present. It's not about forgetting Max or erasing the pain, but about learning to live with it. Eduardo takes a deep breath and feels an acceptance he hasn't felt in a long time. The dog isn't a magic solution to his pain, but he is a way to move forward one step at a time. And as much as the loss of Max has left its mark on him, he is beginning to understand that grief doesn't have to be experienced alone. Sometimes it is in the silent company of another being that healing begins to happen. Eduardo's life is slowly beginning to be filled with moments of understanding and small internal victories, but the weight of loss still hangs over him. He still misses Max, that faithful companion who was by his side in moments of joy and sadness, and who is now no longer present. But in every gesture of his new dog, his calm gaze, the way he lies down next to him on lonely nights, there is something that gives him hope, even if he does not fully understand why. Then one day something happened that completely changed Eduardo's understanding of their relationship. He was going for a morning walk, as he did every day, when the dog, whom he had not yet named, stopped at the door. The animal looked at him with those deep eyes, but now there was something more. It was not just calmness, but a quiet urgency. The dog seemed to be calling to him as if it knew something important was about to happen. Eduardo hesitates, but something in his heart pushes him out of the house towards his usual path. They walk together through the silent streets, the sun beginning to rise on the horizon. The dog in front of him guides their walk. There is no rush, but the feeling that they are both about to experience something transformative is palpable. When they reach a small square, the dog suddenly stops and turns to him. His eyes, as always, are serene, but now there is a sense of finality, as if the cycle is about to close. Eduardo, intrigued, crouches down to get a better look at the dog. He feels an inexplicable pain in his chest, a feeling that something very important is about to be revealed. And that's when he realizes it. The dog silently begins to move away slowly, heading towards a corner of the square. The animal's behavior is calm but determined, and suddenly Eduardo sees what he wanted to show. A small grave, covered with wilted and fallen flowers. The dog, with its calm posture, lies down next to the grave. Eduardo approaches, his heart beating faster, and looking closer, he sees the inscription on an almost forgotten stone. Max. The dog, with a simple gesture, was showing him where Max was resting. At that moment, everything made sense. The animal he had received was not there by chance. He was a messenger, a missing link between pain and healing. With tears in his eyes, Eduardo kneels beside the dog, stroking his head. He feels a wave of emotions wash over him in an overwhelming way. The pain of losing Max, the gratitude for having had the chance to share those moments with him, and the peace that finally begins to fill the void he thought was impossible to heal. The dog doesn't move away, but he doesn't want to be the center of attention either. He just stands there next to Eduardo in a silent gesture of understanding. The man finally understands. The dog is not a replacement, not a remedy for pain, but a way to move on, to give new meaning to life. There is no more guilt, no more fear of moving on. The love he felt for Max will never disappear, but he can now open his heart to this new friendship, this new journey. With a deep sigh, Eduardo looks up at the sky, as if asking for some answer, but now with the feeling that he already knows what he needs to do. He slowly gets up and without words begins to walk home with the dog by his side. The animal, with its calm presence, continues to guide him. Together they walk towards the future, knowing that pain will always be a part of life, but that it does not have to be an unbearable burden. Time passes. Weeks become months, and Eduardo's pain, although still present, begins to fade with the constant presence of the dog. He calls him Luz because that is exactly what the animal brought to his life. A new light, a new direction, a new reason to smile. Every morning, every walk, every quiet moment with Luz is a form of healing, acceptance, and transformation. Winter arrives, bringing with it the coldness of the mornings, but also a sense of renewal in the air. Eduardo and Luz continue their daily walks, sometimes without words. Just the sound of their footsteps on the frozen ground and the sound of the wind passing through the trees. Everything seems to have a different rhythm now, as if the world around them has found a way to calm the inner noises of their soul. One of those days when the sun sets earlier and the sky turns a soft golden, Eduardo sits on a park bench with Luz by his side. He watches the dog with a serene smile, his eyes still so deep but now with an immense tranquility. Luz looks at him, and for the first time Eduardo feels that there are no more questions. There is no more need for answers. He feels complete, at peace. The silence between them is welcoming, unhurried, as if they both knew they were in the right place at the right time. Eduardo looks at the horizon where the shadows begin to grow and the sky slowly darkens. Then he whispers to the dog in a soft, almost inaudible voice, "You helped me find my way back. I don't know what I would do without you." Luz, without moving, seems to hear his words, and instead of responding with a gesture, simply places her head on Eduardo's lap, as if confirming the depth of their connection. The man closes his eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of the dog's body against his. It is a silent but deep embrace, something that words cannot describe. At that moment, Eduardo understands that he no longer needs to look for answers to the pain he felt. He learned to live with it, to transform it, and now finds solace in the presence of the dog. Max, his old friend, would always be in his heart, but now he knew he could continue to live, to move forward. The love they both shared was not a prison, but a strength that helped him walk further, stronger. The sky darkens completely and the streetlights begin to glow softly. Edward stands up with Luz at his side. They begin to walk back home as they always have, but now, unlike the days of mourning and darkness, there is a lightness in the air. What once seemed like an unbearable burden has become a sweet and comforting memory, and the pain, while never completely erased, is now just a part of your journey, a story told with love and acceptance. They continue on together without words. The world around them continues to spin, but Eduardo knows in a quiet way that he is no longer alone. Light is the beacon that guides him, the silent friend who accompanies him. No matter what the future brings, together they will face it. And so the story of Eduardo and Luz comes to an end, not with a farewell, but with the promise that love and friendship transcend time, pain, and loss. Sometimes it's the simplest things, the quietest gestures that show us the path to healing. If this story touched your heart, just imagine how many more are still to come. Here, every bark carries a new beginning, a second chance, a brand new life. If you believe in the power of dogs to change destinies, like mine, like yours, then subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because together we'll share stories the world needs to hear and feel.